September 30, 1938, Heston Aerodrome. A man steps off a plane, waving a piece of paper like a holy relic. Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of Great Britain. He has just saved the world. He tells the cheering crowds, "I believe it is peace for our time." 11 months later, those same crowds were diving into bomb shelters. The peace was a death warrant for 70 million people. History calls Chamberlain a coward, a weakling. But history is often too lazy to look at the wiring of the human brain. Welcome to Psyche of Power. Today, we autopsy the wishful thinking bias. We're going to see how a man of high intelligence became the ultimate architect of his own destruction. To understand Munich, you must understand the managerial mind. Chamberlain wasn't a warrior. He was a businessman. He believed in the theory of mind, specifically the egocentric heuristic. He assumed everyone, even a monster, calculated profit and loss like a Birmingham industrialist. But Adolf Hitler didn't want a seat at the table. He wanted to burn the table and use the ashes for war paint. This is where the psychology gets hardcore. Enter wishful thinking bias. It's not just hoping. It's a cognitive defense mechanism that filters out reality to protect the ego from trauma. September 15, 1938. Chamberlain travels to the Eagle's Nest. He's 69. He's never flown before. He is literally in the clouds. He is convinced that he is the only one who can stop the apocalypse. This is the endowment effect of peace. When we own a solution, we overvalue it. Chamberlain had invested so much in the idea of being a peacemaker that any evidence to the contrary felt like a personal loss. Hitler was a master of psychological mirroring. He knew his audience. To the German crowds, he was a god. To Chamberlain, he played the part of the reasonable statesman. Hitler spoke of self-determination and grievances. Language Chamberlain understood. Language that felt rational. Read that again. A man who could be relied upon. This is the first cognitive reversal. Chamberlain didn't trust Hitler. He trusted his own interpretation of Hitler. He fell for the halo effect. Because Hitler was a head of state, Chamberlain assigned him statesmanlike virtues. Hitler demanded the Sudetenland. He threatened war. Chamberlain's response, not to prepare for battle, but to manage the demand. This leads us to our first deep psychological concept, attribute substitution. When faced with a complex, terrifying question, is there a predator in our midst? The brain substitutes it for an easier one. Can we find a compromise? Chamberlain was haunted. Like all of Britain, he was suffering from collective PTSD from 1914. His bias wasn't cowardice. It was a desperate will to believe. In psychology, this is known as motivated reasoning. We don't seek the truth. We seek the conclusion that keeps us from panicking. Every time Hitler lied, Chamberlain's brain performed a cognitive bypass. He ignored the screams of the Czechs because they didn't fit his peace narrative. September 29, the Munich Conference, Mussolini, Daladier, Chamberlain, and Hitler. Notice who is missing. The Czechs. The victims weren't even invited to the funeral of their own country. This is the bystander effect on a geopolitical scale. If everyone is agreeing to the lie becomes the new reality. Hitler signed a separate piece of paper for Chamberlain, A personal no-war pledge. To Hitler, it was garbage. To Chamberlain, it was a get-out-of-jail-free card. He was a hero. The king stood with him on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. This is the social proof trap. When millions of people tell you that you are right, the human brain loses the ability to perceive that it is wrong. But there was one man who didn't fall for it, Winston Churchill. And this brings us to our second cognitive reversal. Churchill wasn't a better person. He was a worse one. In the eyes of the polite elite, he was a romantic, a warrior, and a bit of a crank. Churchill didn't use the egocentric heuristic. He didn't think Hitler was like him. Churchill understood the predatory archetype. Churchill knew that you cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth. But the British public called him a warmonger. Let's talk about the Pollyanna Principle, named after a fictional girl who played the glad game. Chamberlain was the Pollyanna of geopolitics. He chose to see Hitler's rearmament not as a preparation for conquest, but as a restoration of pride. This is scotoma, a mental blind spot. We literally do not see what we are not prepared to handle. 6 months after Munich, Hitler breaks every promise. He occupies the rest of Czechoslovakia. The beautiful lie shatters. This is the moment of cognitive dissonance, the moment where reality hits the brain like a freight train. Most people think Chamberlain stayed delusional. He didn't. That's the tragedy. He realized he had been played. He began to arm Britain. Fast. But he did it with the heavy heart of a man who knew his legacy was already poisoned. Why did he wait so long? Why did he let Hitler grow so strong? Because of the sunk cost fallacy. To admit he was wrong in 1938 would have meant admitting that all his work, his entire career, was a failure. Human beings would rather die than admit they were the sucker. Hitler called Chamberlain an umbrella man, a symbol of weak, middle-class morality. Hitler understood something Chamberlain didn't, the banality of optimism. Optimism is a virtue in a grocery store. It is a suicide note in a jungle. Chamberlain thought he was managing Hitler. In reality, he was enabling him. In psychology, this is intermittent reinforcement. Every time Chamberlain gave Hitler what he wanted, he reinforced Hitler's belief that the West was decadent and weak. Poland is invaded. The game is over. September 3, 1939. His voice crackles over the air. Everything that I have worked for, everything that I have hoped for, has crashed into ruins. This is the sound of a man's soul breaking, not because of the war, but because his self-concept, the great peacemaker, had been incinerated. Let's look at the backfire effect. Sometimes, when our deepest beliefs are challenged by evidence, we don't change them, we double down. Even at the end, Chamberlain tried to justify himself. He believed that by buying time, he had saved Britain. Was he right? Or was that just the final layer of the wishful thinking bias? This is our third cognitive reversal. We think we are rational animals. We aren't. We are rationalizing animals. The psyche of power isn't about how people control others. It's about how they fail to control themselves. Look at the world today. Do you see Chamberlain? He is everywhere. We still use the egocentric heuristic. We still think if we just trade with them, they will become like us. We forget that history isn't a series of events. It's a series of psychological failures. He died just 6 months after leaving office. Some say of cancer. Others say of a broken heart. Churchill's eulogy was kind, but his actions were the ultimate indictment. He spent the rest of the war undoing Chamberlain's reason. This is the Lindy effect. Truth survives. Lies, no matter how peaceful, eventually rot from within. Wishful thinking is a luxury for the powerless. For those in power, it is a weapon of mass destruction. To lead is to stare into the abyss and see it for what it is, not what you wish it to be. We are more connected than ever, yet we are just as susceptible to the beautiful lie. Our algorithms are the new Chamberlains. They tell us exactly what we want to hear. They feed our wishful thinking bias. The hardest thing for a human being to do is to accept an ugly truth over a beautiful lie. Chamberlain thought he was shaking a hand. He was actually touching a mirror of his own desperation. Hitler used Maskirovka, not of the military, but of the mind. He wore the mask of the displeased partner. We suffer from temporal myopia. We prioritize the comfort of peace today over the survival of tomorrow. Chamberlain played a gentleman's game on a board that was melting. The most dangerous man is not the one who lies to you. It's the one who lies to himself and believes it. Every step of his life prepared him to be the perfect victim for Hitler, his upbringing, his success, his morality. His morality was his shield. But you cannot block a bullet with a prayer book. The ghost of Neville Chamberlain haunts every peace treaty, every negotiation, every compromise. He reminds us that the psyche of power is fragile. It is prone to the narcissism of small differences. He didn't see the black swan because he was too busy looking at the white doves. We don't hate Chamberlain because he failed. We hate him because we see ourselves in him. We see our own tendency to ignore the red flags in our relationships, our jobs, our politics. The wishful thinking bias is the ultimate comfort food for a dying civilization. This is why we study history, to recognize the patterns before the bombs start falling. Because peace for our time is only possible if you are willing to look the devil in the eye and call him by his name. Don't be a manager of chaos. Be a student of reality. I'm the psyche of power. If you want to dive deeper into the darkness of human nature, subscribe. Otherwise, enjoy your peace.